good morning, everybody. Well, given what we thought was going to happen on Friday with the forecast of what is now known as Tropical Storm Imelda, to watch the weekend model runs evolve due to the changing weather patterns that are hitting the southeast was incredible. And here's what the newest update is. The influence of Umberto, which over the weekend hit Category 5 strength intensities this morning at Cat 4, plus the presence of this large area of high pressure that's pretty far to the north, and an upper-level trough sneaking through here, all of those things are going to take Imelda and prevent it from making a landfall in the southeast. Now, that is good, but there's also some other implications to this we have to discuss. But I want to show it to you. If you look up, let's go about a mile above our heads here. That's it. That high-pressure area is too far to the north to have its flow come around the backside and pull both systems closer to the east coast. And then if you go up higher than that, let's go up into the jet stream. This is the trough that is ultimately protecting the East Coast from any interaction with Imelda and a landfall. And Umberto, which again, let's just go back and look at it, is going to use the Fujiwara effect to help yank Imelda away. And that is incredible to see because on Friday, I was very concerned about a massive flooding event in the southeast. Instead, there is rain going on right now in parts of the Carolinas, and we need every drop of that rain. But the chances of this hitting have now been just kind of wiped out of the forecast. And as you can see here, Imelda is going to make a hard turn following Umberto and heading out to the North Atlantic soon. Now, this is a major shift in what we were thinking overall. Now, one last thing to point out, there is a low pressure center, tropical in origins, forming here in the Gulf or near the Bay of Campeche. But this guy's going south. And again, that's due to the influence of the upper level flow. That's a part of the jet stream piece that's in here. Just fascinating to think about. Now, elsewhere around the country, we got to watch these coming into the west. There's a big front coming into the northwest. Finally, we need this to hit this part of Washington where we're still dealing with some wildfire smoke. We're going to keep an eye on these troughs as they move across the North Atlantic going forward. All right, but back to the North Pacific. Back to the tropics. Watch the two systems right here. 1, 2. There's Umberto, and this is Imelda. As I play this forward, there they go. See them spinning out together. And what's going to be very interesting to watch is what's left of Umberto could at some point hit Ireland or, the British Isles hard as a powerful system, possibly with a sting jet on its backside here. But here I am out by Friday, and there's our Bermuda high, and there's a big area of high pressure that's parked over the eastern half of the country. And that just means this whole region in through here is going to continue to get and stay very, very dry. So what did we get over the weekend? Total precipitation over the weekend. The leftovers from the system last week that went running through the midsection of the country did bring the rain up in Virginia, North and South Carolina, parts of Georgia. This was desperately needed. The model forecasted very well on this, and you saw the front coming through the North Pacific. That is going to make its way into the west here very, very soon. And we need rainfall in those areas. This has been very dry. And this is what the hope on Imelda was, to bring in some rain, which it is going to do, but stay far enough away not to bring the devastating effect of the flooding or the hurricane force winds should it get that strong. And it's not. We now know that it's not. The issue, as you look back over the last 30 days, is now we've got a risk of continuing dry here. Yes, we're bringing in moisture to help put out those fires here in parts of Washington. There's going to be wide open harvesting windows in the midsection of the country. As we just kind of diagnose where this pattern's going to go, I need to tell you where it's been. You see, the Bermuda high's been displaced since the 1st of August. There it is. It's just sitting over here. And the Pacific highs followed this track. We've had just some moisture that's come around the bottom side of the Bermuda high into the Caribbean, sneaking through parts of the Gulf, bringing moisture here. But that moisture, and we've diagnosed this before, is what's responsible for this area staying wetter. And what's amazing about that area is that that's actually typically a rain shadow region, right? I mean, we typically have westerly flow that comes over the top. We get a rain shadow here. We tap into Gulf moisture there, and all the wet, big storms blow up farther to the east. Not the case when the Bermuda high is gone. So over the last, this goes back to August 1st, we've seen incredible dry weather here in the parts of the eastern Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and into the northeast. And remember, it's been over the last 30 days that this area has gone extremely dry as well, which is why we're thankful it is raining in this spot this morning. Now, the west, we've got better moisture coming in as we go forward in the forecast. The next 7 days, I've got multiple fronts coming through, bringing up rainfall in this area, although parts of the Columbia Basin, the interior of Oregon, going to be drier. And there's a larger area in Montana that stretches into Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba that's drier too. But there's a system coming through here I'm going to show you in just a few moments that could revive some of the moisture in parts of the northern plains and upper Midwest. But if you're in this region for the next 7 days, I mean, it is very, very dry in the pattern. Same thing for the Southwest. So is there anything left in the tropics to discuss? Well, I have been thinking that there's going to be some development at some point here, in this side of the Caribbean. I've talked about it now for 3 weeks. And October can be the month for something down there to get going. But right now in the current forecast, I just don't see anything blowing up down here. We'll keep an eye on it, but just understand that this might be an important spot at some point in October to be monitoring. Now, why am I thinking that? Well, if you look at the current Havmuller, which starts today and goes to mid-October, okay, we do see, the MJO probably sliding over a little bit, maybe over to Indonesia. All of your subsidences in the equatorial Pacific. But there's this idea that you get out there past the first week of October, we're going to take the lid off the tropics in the the Caribbean, the Gulf, and the Western Atlantic again, which could get some stuff going there. But until then, I think more of our pattern is going to be dominated by jet stream flow and where it is versus anything else. Now, do you remember Friday's forecast video? We were talking that if we're going to revive moisture across very dry areas, you got to get troughs like this to barrel through the country. And some of the forecast models are doing that. But one of the reasons that these are going to be reluctant to do that is look where the best jet stream flow is. It's way up here. And we've got these kind of highly amplified, look at this, come around that trough. We've got these highly amplified, almost omega blocky looking things, that are running across the mid latitudes. There's one over here too. And as a result, the pattern, the jet's too far north. It's too mild in this area. Too mild here too, to bring it back down. But there is a change. For months, not for months, probably maybe about a month, yeah, we've had low pressure in the Gulf of Alaska. And it now seems to be being replaced. And I'm going to watch that very, very carefully. So let's quickly summarize where I think this next week is going to go. The West, you do have a couple of fronts coming through. But we're going to have a pocket here in Montana that stretches into the Canadian prairie that is drier. I'll give you the timing on this system in a few moments. But if you're in this region, very, very dry conditions for at least another week. By week 2, though, so watch this weekend, that's when we're going to see the setup coming through to revive some of the moisture here in the upper Midwest. There is a system coming through, but notice day 8 through 14 is still drier in this corridor, which is why over the next 2 weeks, we are expecting drought to continue to build in this region. Now, this has been a problematic region, and some of the longer range models, even past the middle of October, like the new CPC update, kept it drier as well. And even the new long-range European and GFS, both of them, have this region drier. Now, what would break this down? Well, dislodge one of these deeper lows to dive down over the Rockies and go. And if that's the case, we don't need the Bermuda high. We'll pull moisture out and get it to hit this area. There'll be a line of storms, but it'll do it. The other feature is get something to brew out of the Bay of Campeche, tropical in nature, and weekly move into this area to revive the drought. If either of those two things do not happen, then this whole region continues to get drier and drier. The uncertainty area for me is here, the uncertain areas, because I think we're going to crash this pattern down in about 15 days, delivering something into this area. And it'll be critical. Take a look at where the Mississippi is this morning. It's 4.3 feet below low stage. Last week, last September 24th, it was, not last, but September 24th last week, was 7.13 feet. And that little bump is just from the rain that just came through the Mid-South this past 7 days. But it didn't make a massive recovery. And if you look around at the soil moisture, look at the eastern Great Lakes. Look at this part of the Midwest. Look at this section of the Missouri Basin. There's not a whole lot of water coming in here in the next week. We're going to have to wait until next weekend to start to revive some of this moisture. And that's just one spot to kind of glance at here. So with all of that as kind of a background story, what are we waiting on? If you are in this region and you are in drought, we got to get these things to barrel through here. And they've been anchored there for about a month. Now watch. As I play forward, the trough enters the west. I'll show you the precip totals in a second. And then as we get out there to Thursday, Friday, this is going to be the big question. Look at the replacement of the trough that was in the Gulf of Alaska with a ridge. And as we get out there farther, just look at this. Trough, trough, ridge, ridge. This is at least moved. This has moved. And we're getting this omega look. And I don't like omega looks because what they tend to do is they tend to pull the troughs in this direction rather than letting them advance. And that's what we probably see. So this is a weaker system coming through this area to revive moisture. And there it is. See that? Came back over into the southwest. Omega. Okay. What about, I don't know, let's get past the first week into the second week. This is October 11th and 12th. This is different. And that, therefore, this is farther to the east. And that could signal beyond mid-month something different. Now, until then, we're going to deal with this. This is total rainfall through Thursday. Yes, we need every ounce of this. There's the fronts coming into the west, bringing up precipitation totals. Let's just play it out a week, and you'll see this weekend, okay? See this weekend? That's Saturday, Sunday, Monday. That's when that trough comes through, but it sends some moisture this way and some that way. Did you notice that? Watch it again as I go back over the weekend. See it? But some. I'm out here 216 hours in the forecast, and if you are in this region, it's just little chances. Same here and same there. Now, the models beyond 10 days are just like, yeah, bring it in. Just dump it in here. But that is on the hope of just driving a system out of the northwest into the upper Midwest. And a lot of the models are not really keen on doing that. So for the next 7 days, everywhere that you see the brightest color, especially this darkest red, that is where the probability of staying under 1/10 of an inch is highest. That's a large region. How about a 1/2 inch? Let's go out 10 days. There you go. That's a lot of dryness across the country. I mean, we're wetter here. There's a chance here. And you've got your system here and down in Florida, but that's a big section of the country that's drier. Now, what are the temperatures going to do? Well, do you remember the beginning of this month? Like, I've almost long forgotten it. It was extremely hot in the Pacific Northwest, record hot, and near record cold in the Midwest, upper Midwest, Great Plains, all the way down to the southeast. That was the first 10 days of the month. Look at what's happened since, the 10th through the 28th. Those 18 days have been record hot here. We're trying to figure out when that's going to break down. So I want to show you something kind of neat. If you come over to local weather, just click on the local weather tab. We're going to go to Minneapolis. I'll start typing it in. There it is. Click submit. It's hitting all of our APIs, populating all these graphics for you. 3 or 4 seconds and it's done. And I want you to see this. Ready? If you slide down here, Minneapolis over the next 7 days, look at these stats. 16.9 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than normal. But I'm going to come over to the 15-day temperature graphic, which is there. And I want you to see this. There's the run-up in warm temperatures through the weekend. But then we start to see early next week an attempt to return closer to normal. But notice the GFS brings the heat back on, while the artificial intelligence and the European operational drop the temperatures. This is where our uncertainty is, way out there in the forecast. So let's go have a look at it. Frost risk over the next 7 days. We can find a higher elevation in the west, but we do have deep troughs and cooler weather coming into the west. And then here in the northeast, which is very common this time of year. High temperatures today. See the frontal effect here in the west, keeping the temperatures cooler. But it's 85 degrees in Minneapolis today. And you can see, look at the color bar. We're way up here in terms of how much warmer it is than normal. Then this is Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, I've got 84 in Grand Forks. Thursday, 86 in Grand Forks. Holy smokes. Cloud cover, cooler here, cooler west. That's Friday's temperatures. Saturday, Sunday. When is that going to move out? Because for the next 5 days, the west is cooler, the southeast is cooler, but they've just planted that ridge in the midsection of the country, and it's hot. That's day 5 through 10. And the models wash out everything, day 10 through 15. So I want to know past mid-October, is something going to come through? And one of our models, the artificial intelligence, says yeah. So let's play it out here. Through this weekend, okay, that's the trough bringing up the rainfall this weekend. There it is right there. But you know the omega block is going to set up. So did you see it? The main trough went right back here to the coastal side of Washington, Oregon, and California. There it is. There's your omega. But watch what the European model ensemble does way out there. It's la la land, but it's out 282 hours. Don't bank on that, but we'll keep an eye on it. But watch this. See the dislodgement of this pattern? There's your ridge. There's your downstream trough. That could be the signal toward cooler, wetter weather for the midsection of the country, but it is out there, middle of the month. So what's changing? Okay, we've kind of looked at the next 2 weeks. Is there any signal for this? Look how much cooler the North Pacific has made, especially here. For the first time in months, there is a cooler than normal signal showing up in the Gulf of Alaska, while our La Niña continues to gain strength. And what I'm most interested in is that La Niña gaining strength while this cools off. Now watch, here's the reason why. If you look at the wind field, these cooler colors represent stronger trade winds right across the equator. And this is the open Pacific right here. Now for weeks, see how they just kept surging all the way over past the international date line clear to Indonesia? What we notice is that in the forecast, that line is kind of backing its way toward, well, back toward the central Pacific, maybe even over toward, South America. And you say, what does that do? Well, that's going to do this. That's going to bring more upwelling and cooler water here as the trade winds remain strong. But they're not going to be as powerful going over here, which is going to take the MJO, which has lived there, and let it slide. That's not going to happen until mid-month. But if it happens, it's going to shift this whole pattern around. And we're familiar with these mid-fall shifts, okay? Remember last year? All of September, all of October, Bermuda high was there. Deep low pressure centers here, broad ridge there, and it got bone dry and very mild. That was last September and October. Now, you just saw me show you that we're about to knock this out this year. When did that happen a year ago? Well, not until you got into the month of November. High pressure built in, low pressure advanced farther to the east. We brought flow around, systems came through, Gulf opened up, big ridge moved farther toward, out of the Hudson Bay toward Greenland, and the whole pattern just broke down. So you went from this in September and October, record dryness northeast, record dryness throughout much of the Midwest, plains, this whole region. And all we had was Milton and Helene, which were devastating hurricanes. But that was what drove the pattern, a year ago. And we were waiting on the West. Well, by the time we got into November and the whole pattern shifted, look at our winter wheat belt. Just incredible. And you want to see what it did? These were the ocean temperatures in October. Not much to talk about here, right? That was that. Those trade winds shifted, cooler water emerged, La Niña took over, cooler water came into the Gulf of Alaska. Boom, bigger, different pattern. So you now know at least what I'm going to be paying attention to. These same series of events, especially the La Niña, will affect what's going on in South America as well, where we did see the newest planting progress numbers get pretty high here. We're at almost 6% planted in Mato Grosso, and I anticipate us to stay right on this top side of the 5-year distribution over the next week. And here's my reasoning. It rained here in the last 7 days. Remember the front we talked about? It kind of hopped and skipped over parts of Mato Grosso do Sul, and Sao Paulo, but there's been wetter conditions in southern Brazil, wetter conditions in Cordoba over toward Buenos Aires, just in the spring pattern. Now, where is it raining today? Well, we have a front that just snuck through that dry pocket, but it didn't revive too much of the rain. But the best monsoonal showers are pretty far over here to the west. They're in Rondonia, or they're in this side of Mato Grosso. And we do grow a lot of crop here, and they're planting. But the rest of the country looks pretty dry. And normally a dry signal like this would be very concerning, except for during planting. And that's why I think they're going to get a pretty active go of it planting in this area. Wetter conditions to the south. A lot of Argentina is drier over the next 2 weeks. But this is not going to be a hindrance. It's only going to be a hindrance if it lasts past mid-October. And some of the models are saying, yep, that second week is drier. But after October 13th, 14th, 15th, they're trying to revive precipitation here to finish the month. And if that occurs, that is going to be a very, very positive signal for the Brazilians on getting their crop established. And we need to watch it very carefully. So that's where I'm going to leave you off today. We'll continue to build this narrative this week. But until then, have a good one. Thanks.